Matthew here from MMORPG.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. It's the last Sit and Talk of February, which means we're almost into March, which means we're almost at spring, which means all this crappy cold weather can stop. It's really cold out there. I know I'm Canadian, but this has been a cold winter. And I know people will say, well, we used to have winters like this, but we haven't for a few years, so I'm not used to it, alright? It's cold. It's very cold. Lots of snow. We've been having snow since like October, and it's just too much. People I know somebody in the world somewhere is going to be, oh, you should see where I live. I don't live there. I live here, and I like it here, and I don't like it, but it doesn't matter. Okay, anyways, Sit and Talk, February 28th, very last day of February. So, if you're new to the show, a couple things I have to say. First off, I answer questions and comments that people have posted on the previous Sit and Talk. However, I only answer the ones that are posted on our website because it's just easier for me to print them off really fast. That's actually the only reason. Otherwise, I would welcome YouTube comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, if you want to leave a question or comment that I will actually answer or look at, you need to click on the link in the video description and then leave it there. It will require an account on Mini Wargaming, but that's free, so it doesn't matter. And second thing is, I answer questions pretty much about anything. So the topics of religion and politics do come up quite often. So if you are easily offended by either of these topics, then please don't watch this show. There's plenty of other shows in Mini Wargaming to watch, so you can just ignore this one, and it'll just make you happier. But if you're able to hear that kind of stuff and still be able to be participate in those kind of discussions, then that's great. Now, of course, I don't go into great detail on those subjects. I try to focus mainly on wargaming and business and that kind of stuff. So if you want to ask me more in-depth questions about religion or whatever and have any discussions, or if you're curious about my beliefs or whatever, feel free to email me, Matthew@MiniWargaming.com. I get some of them every single week, and while it does take me usually a few days to reply to them because I like to set aside some time and actually give them some good replies rather than just quick ones, I will reply. So as long as you're not like belligerent. You know, let me say, hey, you suck because you're religious. I'll just be like, delete. Not even archive. I like archive everything, but I delete that. The sun's like right in my eyes. I'm not sure. I think just the time of the year, it just happens to be like right there, and there's no way for me to block it. The blinds are already up, unless I like turn the blinds. Hold on. That work? Hey, that's better. You just got to turn them to be up rather than down, so there's no cracks coming down. So, great. I'm glad I figured that out 2 minutes into the video. So, I have printed off all the questions from the last Sit and Talk. This time there's only 14 pages. Last time there was 21, and I only got through like 9 or 10 of them. I don't know if I'll get through all 14 in the hour, but I will do my best without rushing too fast. I will also probably skip over questions that we've kind of done to death in the past couple, so sometimes people keep coming back and commenting on the same things, which is perfectly fine. You're allowed to comment and question whatever it is that you want to on these shows. But after a while, I just kind of get bored of certain topics, and I'm like, okay, we've already talked about that one enough. So let's just get going and see what we've got here. And I don't read these beforehand. I might skim through and see them throughout the week, but not really pre-select anything here. So really, if you want your question answered, your best bet is to be one of the first to post. As long as you get like the first like 50 to 60 comments, usually yours will be answered. So Garen Wolfsbane, hey Matt, I'm a new subscriber to the Vault, you are awesome, and I'm loving the content. Gotta say I love the idea of the basic how to play tutorials for 40k. One thing I would love to see is a bat rep between you and Dave. Any chance that the two of you will do a 40k bat rep of epic banter proportions? Yeah, that's something that we always talk about doing. I've talked about this in the past. The reason it's hard to do it is because we're both so busy doing our own thing. And when the two of us are playing together, it's like if both of us are playing other opponents, then we get double the battle reports. So anytime two employees battle each other, it's a bit of a waste of resources. And we have to think this way because we're running a business that we're actually trying to be profitable and all that. So we have to look at the cost that it requires to make a battle report. And part of that is the hourly wages of the employees. Most of the people we play against are people who just come in, so they don't get paid. And so it's just, you're just paying the employee. But when you have two employees, then you double your cost, essentially. Because the editing time is very little. I think most battle reports get edited within an hour. Or even, in my case, about 15 minutes. Just because of the way we do it. Dave's take a little longer because he likes to put more into it. And so that's why you don't see those as often. Like me against Jay or anything like that. But it is something that's always on our minds. And the story battles between your Nids and Necrons sounds really cool, and I would love to see them. Are you planning on posting them in the Vault? Well, now they've actually started to be posted, so you probably already have an answer to that. They started yesterday, and half of them, like Basically, we're doing a 6-week campaign, and every week there's 2 missions, and one of them goes out for free, and one of them goes into the vault. Hey Guma, awesome sauce. Not really a question. The first political question about majority rule has one issue. The Ottoman Empire wasn't a democracy. There was no vote on whether killing the Armenians was good or not. Some higher ups in the pecking order decided so it was done. They tried the same with the Jews, but the Jews fought back. The problem is that we're thinking in terms of majority and minority, and often these borders are built up along skin color, sexual orientation, and whatever else we can find after looking for it for a while. Whereas in most countries, the way I've observed it, people have pretty much stopped seeing themselves and others as people of those countries, or even see each other as humans. You're black, you're white, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're gay, you're not gay, you're Christian, you're atheist, you're no longer primarily a human. You're primarily your skin color, your political affiliation, your sexual orientation, your religion, etc. Small details, labels. Interestingly enough, none of this really originates from the people. All these labels come from politicians who are either in power or want to get there, activists and the media. It's nothing else but us and them, which ultimately leads to divide and rule, keep the people divided and quarreling about minor points, and they'll be too busy focusing on the really important things. Too busy to focus on the really important things. You know what, I agree with a lot of what you said there. We do apply a lot of labels. And part of it, there's a reason for, obviously. Like, if I go to another country and I come across a Mormon, for example, there's an instant kind of kinship there, even though you don't know the person at all, and maybe you have no compatibility with them as friends. Like, let's face it, I've met people in my religion who I'm easily friends with, and I've met people that I'm not easily friends with, even though we both share the same religion. But there's still something about finding something in common with somebody else. Like if you were to go somewhere else and find somebody who played Warhammer, and you're like, hey, I play Warhammer too, and all of a sudden you have a common bond. We like to find those commonalities between us, and that can also lead to the labels, because all of a sudden it's not I'm me. I'm just like, I'm a Mormon. I'm a war gamer. I'm a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm white. I'm male. Like all these different things that we label ourselves, and labels aren't bad in and of themselves. It's just that sometimes we go a little too far into extreme with them. Because we do kind of try to identify who we are based on all those different things. And while I definitely agree that those labels don't actually define what we are, it does help us to kind of figure out where we are. But I do agree, the media, primarily I think, is responsible for most of the misinformation that we have in our brains about the way society should actually be. And the media not just being news media, I'm talking about like TV shows and movies portraying how people act when they're so far. Like you don't get much more fictitious than the way people act in TV shows and movies. Like they are so far from reality. It's just ridiculous. And so then, but people watch that and they get this idea that that's normal. Even if they like logically say out loud that's not normal, you can't help but be influenced by that. All the billboards showing females looking a certain way, and all of a sudden all the females think they should look like that, and all the males think that their counterparts, their wives, their girlfriends, their whatever should look like that, and it just throws off perception really bad. And so it's something we have to deal with in society. It's not going to go away, but we have to become more aware of it so that we can counter it in our own minds and work to fight it, because it influences all of us greatly. Odastra, hey Matt, love what you guys do, keep making great content. So my group has always played with a lot of terrain in 40k, to the point where at the start of the game the two armies can't usually see each other. Wow, that's a lot of terrain. We use multi-exit buildings, allowing troops to move and close while taking minimal fire, but still moving from one end of the board to the other is a tricky feat that takes thought and planning, especially when it comes to where you want to reinforce with reserves as the battle goes on. My questions are, what is your thought on the amount of terrain? How you think it impacts the enjoyment of play and also tactics? Would you consider using more terrain in your games? Thanks for doing the segment, I really enjoy listening. I think terrain is one of the key things of any game. And when you don't play with enough of it, you actually throw off the balance of the game, as little as there is in games like 40k, and you also lose a lot of the enjoyment. Now, there's one exception to this, and that's Warhammer Fantasy. I find that terrain in Warhammer Fantasy is annoying, because everything's moving around in movement trays. And so as soon as you're dealing with terrain, it just becomes annoying. Now, it definitely has the tactics, because it blocks charge lanes, but it's so frustrating. But with other games like 40k, especially games like Infinity, like those ones need tons of terrain to be played properly, otherwise it's just dumb. But War Machine in 40k, I think people don't play with enough terrain. If you think about it, 40k players are always complaining about what? They're complaining about, oh, the Tau keeps shooting me up and the Eldar keep shooting me up. It's like, well, if you give them open battlefields, then of course they're going to shoot you up. Like that's what happens. there's like the cover is a big part of the game. Like think about there's a 50% chance that there's night fighting, which gives stealth and shrouded, which is stealth and shrouded are totally useless unless you already have cover, because who cares if you get stealth? Oh, you get a 6+ cover, woohoo! Or shrouded, you get a 5+ cover, woohoo! But all of a sudden, stealth inside of forests is a 4+ cover, or stealth inside of ruins is a 3+ cover, or shrouded inside of a forest is 3+ cover, or shrouded behind your own units, that's a 3+ cover. Like that covers a big part of the game, unless you're playing like all 2+ save guys. But even then, it's not a bad idea to have it. And so you need to put enough forests on the table, enough ruins, enough obstacles, enough area terrain that because you think about it, you might think, well, that gives an advantage to the close combat army. But let's face it, 40k it used to be a lot about close combat, but it's kind of shifted towards the middle, where if you have a good amount of shooting, you can really negate the close combat. Where it used to be more about you kind of whittle down the opponent until they get to you, and once they get to you, then it's really about did you kill enough, and then will you win close combat. But I'm finding now that there's more and more powerful shooty armies that can really just destroy a close combat army before they have any chance of getting anywhere near it. So you have to have things like that. And that's why I love the Venom Thropes and the Tyranid, giving shrouded to everything nearby. But that would be pretty much useless if there's not enough terrain. Like the game I played against the Eldar, I don't think there was enough terrain on the board. Now you look at it, it looks like a lot, but there's too many open spaces. So most of the time my guys were getting 5+ cover. Now if I had put better trees and placement of that, then even though he was out shooting me, I'd be getting 4+ and 3+ cover half the time. And that would make all my gaunts much more survivable, and he'd still spend those 3 rounds kind of pulling away and shooting at me, but I'd still get to him by the 4th round with enough power to actually provide some combat for him. And it makes the game much more interesting. Now, your idea of actually having so much terrain that it blocks line of sight from one to the other, I think that's too much for 40k, but it's fun for just trying it out. Because that's the thing, there's no perfect way to do it. Like they have the way in the rule book, because they have to provide a way so that if the opponents don't agree on how to do it, then there's like the rules of how to do it. But I don't even use those rules. Like it's who cares? Like I set it up the way I want to, and so you can do that too. So I think not enough terrain is used in games, and more needs to be used. The same goes for War Machine. A lot of times people have sparse terrain, but actually the game plays a lot. It's a really tactical. Not that it isn't already, but it's very tactical when you play it with very crowded table of terrain, because all of a sudden your charge lanes are changed. And you can't charge over terrain unless you got Pathfinder, and it just really, there's certain armies that get very unbalanced at that point, like Legion with their eyeless sight and flying and all that kind of stuff, or if an army has tons of Pathfinder. But balance is always an issue. So that's what I think about terrain. Glockzilla, hey Matt, thanks for making these sit and talks. You're welcome. I find them for the most part very interesting. For the most part, just joking. Very interesting and engaging, and they give me something new to listen to during my daily hour-long commute to and from school. Here's my question. In the last talk titled, Are GW's prices too high? You focus mainly on shipping costs and the time spent with miniatures kind of making up for the cost. But how much is it to produce a plastic miniature? I don't know the exact cost, but I think their profit margin when they sell it at retail, not at wholesale, I think their profit margin is between 80 and 90%. So, and that sounds phenomenally high, but it's not. That's actually what it needs to be, because then there's all the cost of overhead and getting it out to the public, to the stores. They have tons of overhead, and you can kind of see that in their financial reports, just how much of the money they make is eaten up, and then how much are left in profits. So the cost of production is very small. Once the making the molds is expensive, but once you have a mold made, making plastic miniatures is super cheap, and that's just the way it is. Now there's a whole lot of expenses into getting to the point where you're making the miniatures, like the artwork and the sculpting and the actual mold. Those are all expensive, and then there's all the overhead costs of having these humongous manufacturing places and warehouses to store it, and the infrastructure to sell it and ship it and everything else is not cheap. But the actual creation of the miniatures is pretty good. It's got a really good profit margin to it, and it needs to. That's for any manufacturer. You need to have a good profit margin at the manufacturing level, so that you can sell it at wholesale to the retailers, or super wholesale to distributors. But they don't do that part, at least. H Townhammer. Love listening to the sit and talks and diversity of topics. Thank you. My question is, are we ever going to see another live sit and talk? I would say yes, but they're not going to be something I tried them out and I just ended up not liking them. I don't think they had what these have, and yeah, and I just didn't enjoy doing them after a while. Like I enjoyed them at first, but then after a while I just didn't like them, and that's what it comes down to. I just got to do what I enjoy doing so that I can put the energy I need into it. That doesn't mean I'll never do it again. So I would say yes, you'll see another live sit and talk, but it probably won't be on a regular basis. I know you had said in the past you want them to do them from time to time, but it has been a while and didn't know it because of the busy schedule you had. Just shelved that idea for a while or altogether. Just for a while. It's not necessarily even shelved. It's just like, when I think about it, I'll do it. So we'll see. Rubs, hey Matt, not sure if anyone has ever asked, what made you a believer? I'm assuming what you're asking is, why did I decide to follow this religion? The answer to that question is complicated. In short, I was kind of born into it, but I wouldn't say that is the reason why, because there's been lots of times throughout my life where I've questioned it and really become introspective. What I would recommend you do is I'll put a link to my blog where I've posted. It's a personal blog, so and it's all about religion. So don't go there if you're offended by religion, please. And I'll put a link in the video description. It's everydaylatterday.com, and you can see there's a few posts about why I am religious and why I believe. So I'm gonna defer to that for that question, just because to answer it properly will take more time than I'd like to put into a sit and talk. Mindfus one. What's up, Matt? What kind of music do you listen to? I don't actually listen to music. I don't. Not that I don't enjoy music. Like I'm a pianist, but I just growing up. My brother, who had the room right next to me, listened to all the stupid heavy metal stuff, like Iron Maiden, and I can't remember what else. I just remember Iron Maiden because he had those dumb posters and stuff of them. And it was so loud and obnoxious that if I wanted to listen to my own music, I wouldn't have been able to. And so that kind of turned me off to listening to music. I have an appreciation for all types of music. I think I can enjoy any type of music. Except the screamo stuff. I think that's dumb. Like really dumb. So yeah. Are there any rock or metal heads at Mini Wargaming? I don't know. Chris. Yeah, I think Chris would be one of those. Because he listens to music while he's working, and there's sometimes that. But he listens to all sorts of stuff. So I don't know if I would call him a rock or metal head. I think he just enjoys listening to a lot of different things. Metal totally gets me pumped before a 40k game. Any instrument players at Mini Wargaming? See, I like metal, like heavy metal. As much as I don't enjoy listening to it, just kind of to listen to it, it all has its place. Like for example, if you're playing like a racing game, that's like the best place to listen to rap or heavy metal because it gets you aggressive. But you shouldn't listen to it while you're driving because it does the same thing. Or like orchestral and instrumental stuff is awesome, and like in certain movies. Like I love soundtracks. I just absolutely love that type of music. I wouldn't call it classical because as soon as there's like orchestra involved, people are like, that's classical music. That's not what classical music is. But I love instrumental. I love soundtrack music. A lot of it, not all of it. Obviously, there's a lot of dumb soundtracks out there. But like Star Wars soundtrack, Lord of the Rings soundtrack, stuff like 300 or even movies that I don't really like, the soundtracks are often really cool because they're meant to kind of drive the emotion to the epicness, and I love that kind of stuff. And instrument players at Mini Wargaming, I play piano. Jay, do you play an instrument?
No.
I think Owen played violin.
Yeah.
But he's not working here anymore. That's all I know of it. Dave doesn't play an instrument. Justin, you play an instrument?
I own a guitar.
He owns a guitar. He owns a guitar. He's one of those. He just kind of carries it around with him. It's like, look, I have a guitar, ladies. And they're like, play something for me. Like, no, it's okay.
Wife loves it when he goes picks up one guitar.
Yeah, he fixes guitar. That's like a teenager tactic. Just like carry a guitar with you, and girls are also like fawning over you, like, oh, you play guitar? And you're like, yeah, not right now. And like, play something for me. You're like, no, I can't.
And Wonderwall by Oasis.
Yeah, I don't think Chris plays anything. So, but I don't actually know if he does, but I don't think he does. And now a Nid Tactica question from Mindfus1. I'm playing Tau in 2 weeks. Hope you keep up with the sit and talks before them. Haha. I will be bringing Termagants. My question is, do you think it's advantageous in my case to bring Termagants with Spine Fists over Flesh Borers? Both are free and 12-inch, but Spine Fists are strength 3 and twin linked, whereas Borers are strength 4 one-shot only. Well, let's do the math. Okay, let's do the math really quick. If they're both the same range, the AP doesn't matter because they're both AP 5 and Tau are all 4+ saves anyways, or 3+, so the AP doesn't matter. Neither of them have any special rules for anything. So if we're hitting on 4s, then let's say you have 20 Termagants. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. 20 Termagants firing the Flesh Borers. You'd have 10 strength 4 hits. Now let's say you're firing at Fire Warriors, which are toughness 3. So you're wounding on 3s, so you're going to wound 2 out of 3 of those. So let's change this. So you're 18 shots. Let's do it to 18 shots. 18 Termagants, they get 9 hits and then 6 wounds, okay? So if you had those same 18 as Spine Fists, then you get the 9 hits, but then you get to re-roll the other 9, and you get another 4.5. Let's round it down just for fun. So that becomes, well actually let's make it 13.5. 13.5 hits, and they're strength 3 versus toughness 3, so you're going to wound half the time. So what's half of 13.5? Well, it would be 6.075, is that right? Yeah.
2.5.
No. 6.75, sorry. 6.75. Not 0.75. I don't know why I said 0.75. 6.75. Because 6 doubles is 12 and 7.75 doubles is 1.5. So that's 13.5. So instead of getting 6 wounds, you get 6.75 wounds. So on average, you're doing more wounds. Now let's go up against a toughness 4. Let's say you're going up against suits, battle suits. So you get your 18 again, got 9 hits with your Flesh Borers, and those 9 you'll get 4.5 wounds against toughness 4. So the 18 Spine Fists once again get the 13.5 hits, but they're only wounding on 5 pluses, so now it's only going to be 1/3 of those. We got to divide that by 3, which will be 4.5. So it's actually exactly the same number of wounds as the Flesh Borers. So in those two cases, if you look at the two, the Spine Fists are actually the better option. On top of that, it always feels nice to re-roll because it actually increases. I know statistically it should just do exactly what I said, but there's something about it that just feels nice. You just don't have to deal with the bad rolls as often. It kind of regulates your rolls a bit more. Now here's the main disadvantage: is Flesh Borers being strength 4 could actually glance the rear armor of some vehicles. And now against Tau, it's not as much of an issue, but if you're up against something like Eldar, for example, who have a lot of armor 10, or Orcs who have armor 10, like all around, or if you're up against land speeders with Space Marines, then all of a sudden your Spine Fist can't do squat against those, but your Flesh Borers could glance them. And that's a lot of shots, so you could actually get some glances and finish them off. It's not necessarily a good idea to try to do that because it's kind of a desperation move, but they at least have that little extra utility. So against Tau, in this case, I'd say Spine Fists actually on paper look like they're the better option because you're going up against mainly toughness 3 and toughness 4. If you're going to, you have to do the math again because it actually changes with each toughness. It's not a linear movement as you go up the toughness. It's just because of the way that the chart works. And so yeah, so in this case I'd say Spine Fists are slightly better. Not by much though. You'll get a marginal improvement, like a 10% increase, a little 11% increase in effectiveness against Fire Warriors, and no difference against the battle suits. So yeah, unless there's something I'm missing, because they're both AP 5, right? Strength 3 AP 5 and Strength 4 AP 5. They both have 12-inch range. They're both free. See, whereas Spine Fists used to cost 1 point more, so it was like you never brought them. So yeah, so Spine Fists are kind of back in for that kind of stuff. Of course, I will experiment with both on my own in time. Just curious if you had an opinion on the choice yet. See, with that kind of thing, it's easy to calculate and have a certainty as to what you'll do when you know which army you're going against. Last and a related note, any Tactica video series in the works with 6th edition Codex releases. Love the Nid Tactica from 4th and 5th. Yeah, I'm planning on, actually today, I'm planning on doing a bunch of reviews for the new Tyranid Codex now that I've played it a bunch of times, and I will probably do some Tactica with that as well. Mind Who's Won. P.S. I told Dave Wraith the first comment by Garen Wolfsbane. You and Dave, 2,000 points. Loser buys lunch. Corniat. Or Corneat. Or Corn8. Hello, Math. Alright, I guess that's the short form for Matthew. I have really enjoyed your videos and would like to thank you for them. Thank you, and you're welcome. Unfortunately, I can't afford a Vault membership now, but maybe later. That's okay. Not everybody has to be a Vault member. Odd to post this from a 1,000 ACPC. There's something, it got converted into something weird. I don't know what that actually is. Anyways, have you tried Flames of War, World War II war game? I'd love to see some vids. I've seen it, have not tried it, have no desire to try it. Not really big into historical. Not saying we'll never cover it, because it probably is the most popular historical one out there in like the more popular area. Like I know there's lots of other historical ones. Blood Demon, hi Matt, I'm from Belgium, and I love your sit and talks and everything that your company does. I love that sentence, because it seems like those should be related, but they're not. It's cool that you're from Belgium. That's really cool. And thank you for loving my sit and talks and everything else that we do. I play Warhammer Fantasy about 4 years now, playing with the Chaos Warriors, got 7,000 points and almost to my goal of 10,000 point army. I hope GW brings back the Chaos Dwarves. Now I have to buy them from Forge World and cost a lot. Anyways, keep up the good work and can't wait to see much more from you and your company. Thank you very much. Plunkinator. Good day, Matt. Good day, Plunkinator. What happened to Joe? Is he coming back? Joe was never here. He was never an employee. He was involved in our club, and he made some videos that he let us use, but he was actually never an employee. Will he ever come back? I don't know. He works 9 to 5, so I haven't seen Joe for a very long time. I'm not quite sure. International high five at the webcam. Have you ever done a bat rep that you couldn't put up on mini wargaming because the player stormed out or chucked a wobbly? No, actually. Can you recommend any 2-player board or card games? I hear you mention the games you play with your wife a lot. I'm trying to find some games that my wife and I can play. Race for the Galaxy. Awesome. It's not a 2-player game, but you can play it 2 players. And it actually has a slight variant to play at 2 players that makes it work. I love it. Absolutely love that game. Dominion plays really well at 2 players. And because we've looked through a lot of games to try to find the good 2-player games. A lot of games that say they can play at 2 players don't really work at 2 players. Like Bonanza, for example, which is a fun game. You try to play 2 players and it's just kind of dumb. They have rules in there, but they obviously didn't play test them very well because they just kind of were wonky. So Race for the Galaxy is one of our favorite. Dominion is another one that we really like to play. I heard that this game is really good, Twilight Struggle, but unfortunately my wife doesn't like playing games where you attack each other. I know in Dominion and Race for the Galaxy there's elements of that, but it's not that bad. She kind of gets upset at me when we play a game like that and I actually like do stuff to thwart her. Or here's another fun game, but she didn't like as well. It just depends on how you and your wife like to play. Android Netrunner. I brought these into the office because we're just not going to play them at home. This is actually a 2-player game. So is Twilight Struggle. I really like this game. It simulates. One player plays like a big corporation who has servers with important information on it, and the other player plays a hacker. And both players play completely different from each other. And it's a card game, and the hacker tries to make runs at the server, and you try to protect your server. And I actually thought it was really cool. And it actually felt like I was hacking, even though we're just playing a card game. So I'd recommend that one. Try them out. It depends, like once again, the dynamics of you and your wife. If your wife doesn't mind games where you actually fight each other, like if she can, like, for example, it's hard to play Magic the Gathering with my wife because she just doesn't enjoy the aspect of setting up and just pouncing at each other. Whereas I like that. I like playing that. Obviously, I play war games, but she doesn't like that. She likes more games like Race for the Galaxy or Dominion, where you're more like you're playing together. There's some interaction, but it's more like a race to see who can get the most points by the end. But yeah, there is still interaction, just not as much of it in other games. That's my recommendations. Right. X-Men 510. Love watching these shows. Thank you. Just wondering if you were thinking of checking out the Robotech Tactics miniature game when it comes out, and what your thoughts are on it from what has been seen thus far. I am not thinking of checking it out, and I have not actually seen it, so I don't know. Thanks, and keep up the great work. You're welcome. Clavis. Hey, Math. What's with people calling me Math? Just because I did some math? Jeez. Just to get back on Warhammer 30k and your comment about Warhammer campaign style play, take a peek at the campaign in the book they released, 2 campaign story driven about the battle between Space Marines on Istvan 3 and Istvan 5. Also, have you any interest in Elder Scroll Online? You do a good job. I like your show. Thank you. Elder Scroll Online, I think, is the biggest piece of bull that you could ever come out with. I generally frown when a company goes from making one type of game to trying to make an MMO because it's like there's other ways to make money in the computer game industry other than MMOs. Like, come on. So many of those have failed miserably, and it's because that aspect of the industry is actually not as big as the first-person shooters and the Grand Theft Auto kind of parts of the industry. Elder Scrolls is an awesome, awesome single-player experience, and they've refined that, and they're getting better at it with each iteration. And then they go and do this piece of crap and say, now we're going to try to make a big amount of money from an online MMORPG. And this is stupid. I just think it's the stupidest thing. Every Elder Scrolls game has been, you are the focus of some prophecy of some god, and you start off weak, but you're meant to grow into something super powerful and defeat some huge force of nature or of the cosmos or whatever. That's cool. Now all of a sudden you and a million other people are special. It's like, it's the same. If everybody's special, no one is. And I think that is dumb. I know that they're not doing it exactly like World of Warcraft and all that, and I know there's all sorts of new stuff. I understand all that. But why didn't they come up with the idea first to make Elder Scrolls a co-op multiplayer game? Like, can you imagine playing Skyrim co-op with like 6 of your friends and having like this party going out? Everybody's so awesome. That would be like the epitome of awesomeness in computer games. And they're like, no, we're not going to do co-op multiplayer. We're going to make it so there's like 1,000 of you or 1,000,000 of you, all heroes. And that's just dumb. Absolutely dumb. Stupid. Just dumb. Ugh. And it ticks me off because I know it's going to delay them getting the next single player game out, so that even ticks me off more because that's where I would actually give them my money. Like, there's certain computer games where I'm like, I'll wait a year until there's a sale on Steam. And there's certain computer games where I'm like, you can have all my money at full price. Heck, I'll even buy the collector's edition because you're awesome. Like StarCraft 2 came out, and I bought the collector's edition. And just like that. And then Heart of the Swarm came out. I didn't buy the collector's edition of that one, but I bought it at full price right away. And it's just like that. And I have no problem. I didn't even buy it like, it didn't even buy the physical. I bought the digital, so it saves them even on that. Like, I believe in giving them as much money as they deserve. And other games are like, nah, so I'll wait till they're on Steam sale, and that's fine, and support them there. But Elder Scrolls, they disappointed me, big time. And I think it better not like really hurt the series because they've had a good run. Like Morrowind was great, Oblivion was 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, but it was still good in lots of ways. Skyrim was awesome. And I don't know why, the thing I don't get is why companies don't jump more on the DLC stuff. Like, I know that they do a lot of DLC, but the reason that MMORPGs seem like such an attractive thing to a company, I totally get it. I really do get it. Heck, we run a Vault membership, so I understand why you want to get people into a subscription service where they're paying a monthly fee or a yearly fee. I totally get that. And it makes total sense. Rather than risk it all and putting $100 million into a game and hope that it sells, all of a sudden you already have your base of customers, so you can totally project how much money you're going to make. I get the appeal to that, but there's also another way to kind of do that, and that is with a DLC thing, where you release a game, and then people like it, and so then you start to release DLC, which costs money, and I'll buy DLC. I'll buy DLC. I'll buy DLC packs. You know, there's also going to be all the free DLC stuff, and they should have some of that too, because any way to get people to want to buy it more. And then you do your packages together, where it's like the ultimate bundle that has the original with all these others. You have so many ways to keep repackaging the same product over and over again and squeezing out every last bit of money. Or, you know what? I'm wondering what the heck happened to? What happened to Half-Life 2? Like, they had the idea, let's come out in episodes. And that was one of the coolest, most brilliant ideas ever. Do you know why? It's because normally, to make a sequel to a game, you have to rewrite it from scratch. You got to rewrite the whole gaming engine, and you got to go through all the expense. But to make another episode, you cut out so much of those expenses. I know that's still expensive. You still have all the level designing. You still improve your graphics engine a little bit. And you still have all the voice acting and all the other production costs, but you can't tell me that it costs the same as making the original game. It's an expansion, essentially, but like a full feature expansion, kind of like Heart of the Swarm comes out for StarCraft 2. You pay full retail price, like it's almost the cost of the original game, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's as big as the original game, single player wise, and it completely changes the multiplayer experience. And that's the way to do it. Like the fact that Blizzard, who's responsible for World of Warcraft, and that's the one thing I hold against them, is they figured it out. They got StarCraft 2, and they're going to break it into a trilogy, kind of like movies. Movies have figured it out too. Why do one movie when you can do 2 or 3? Now, mind you, some of them, like The Hobbit, I don't think they should be doing 3. They should just do 2. But I'm glad they should at least do 2. But it makes sense. It's like you save so much money. Like Lord of the Rings, making all 3 together definitely saved them money over doing 3 individual ones over a period. Like once the first one was done, go back and do the second one. Like it just makes sense to bundle it all together and do that. And so you can do the same thing for computer games. So I don't know why a game that has so much focus, like there's how many games out there really focus on the single player experience? Not a lot. Like you get like Call of Duty and you play like 5 hours and you're through the campaign and then you go and play them online for hundreds of hours. They focus on multiplayer. Maybe Grand Theft Auto. There's a lot of single player in that one, like open world kind of stuff. Like there's not a lot of games like that. Most of them focus on a crappy single player campaign, or maybe it's good but it's very short, and they give you all your time in multiplayer. And but Elder Scrolls was always about. They always bragged. There's like 200 hours of single player experience packed into this one game, and they were right. Trust me, they were right. There's that much stuff before you finally say, I think I've seen everything now. It takes a while. You can play through it like 3 times, completely different ways, and go different areas. And I remember I played my first play. I got halfway through Skyrim and finally realized that I had actually only explored one out of the major cities. I was actually starting to complain. I'm like, why is there only this one city in Skyrim? Like the other ones had more than one city. And then all of a sudden I start playing through. I wasn't playing the main campaign. I was just playing side missions. And then all of a sudden I start playing the main campaign. It's like, go to this city. And then I'm like, zoom out. I'm like, holy crap, this map is humongous. And I got really excited and I started traveling. And it was just like, oh man. I played through it a second time and saw also, I didn't even know there were dwarven underground things. I thought, well, that was Oblivion. Or no, sorry, that was Morrowind mainly. And then I go and play again and all of a sudden I discover them. And they're all over the place. But I had never seen them just because the world was so vast that I never did. Like, that was awesome. And then they come out with a DLC. I'll pay another $30 for a good length DLC. Like, I'll do that. And they don't have to rewrite the engine. They don't have to redo all that. All they have to do is make some new areas, add to the story, add some new items, add some elements to it, and expand it. Like, that's, to me, like that's their, like, I know they want the subscription thing. I understand that. I totally get that. Heck, maybe they can come. Maybe somebody needs to innovate and coming up with a subscription model for single player games, or at least co-op games, or something like that, where, you know, rather than paying the $60 that costs to get Skyrim, pay $10 a month, and they'll keep making DLC for it. Can you imagine if they did that? Like, that right there's your idea. Like, don't do MMORPGs, because MMORPGs ruin the experience for so many games. Because if you make everybody the hero, because this happens in any game, if you make everybody the hero, then nobody's the hero. That's just the way it is. And so what if they came up with a subscription service for single player games? Why not do that? Why not be like, because so many other products do it. Photoshop, like Adobe does that now. It's for all their products. On Adobe's website, you can no longer buy their products. You can buy it in stores still, because obviously they still want to have retailers. But if you go on their website to buy Photoshop, you can't buy it. You can buy a subscription. It costs $20 a month, but you always get the latest version. And so when you do the calculations, it saves you money over continuing to buy all the new versions. And it's also nice because you don't have to put down the $600 or $800 that it costs. You just start paying $20 a month. So if you just want it for a few months, then you're good. And that's brilliant. That is how you do it. They don't all of a sudden say, no, we're just going to make a new product and throw away the stuff that's been proven to work all these years and make something completely new that has been shown as bankrupted so many different companies and most people don't even want. Like, rant over. And I'm sorry that just took up so much time that I'm going to get to less comments. Had to vent that somewhere. Next question. Anyhow. Hi Matt, I've been a Vault member since April. Thank you very much, you're awesome. Ever since you decided to shut down your store, which I'm kind of glad of, because it got me to buy the membership and start watching your videos, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you. Oh, and definitely a thumbs up for this show. Oh, the show this to your wife page. Ah, yes. Especially as I live in the UK and would need one heck of an excuse to come over. Quick question about Infinity. As you have been playing the Dire Foes packs, what do you think of them in general, rather than the individual ones? In general, they're cool. I like the new miniatures and the cities and all that. The scenarios are kind of meh. They're obviously not very well play tested. At least that's what it feels like, because it just gives the victory, and a lot of them give the victory too much to the person who goes first. I've only played through 2 or 3 of them. Did I play through 3 of the Dire Foes mission packs? But generally, I've been finding that it's interesting. I like the fact that they make new scenarios, but they don't feel very balanced. But I still would buy it because it's worth it just for the miniatures. Like, it's the cost of the miniatures, pretty much. And then you can always take the scenarios and tweak them too. Cell 65 55 45. Hey Matt, looking for some help on flying monstrous creatures. Can they skyfire? They can skyfire, yes, but yeah, they can definitely skyfire. It actually says it right on the page for flying monstrous creatures. I don't see it in the rule book, but for some reason I have seen people do it. Yeah, it's right on the page for flying monstrous creatures. So read that over again. Thanks for all the videos. Don't work too hard. I won't. Martial aid. Matt, first, I want to preface my statement by saying that I respect you, your business, and your ethics. Whoa, that's a very interesting preface. I'm very interested to see what I can do. I also want to add that I'm going to try to articulate my thoughts as concisely and to the point as I can. This is a pretty heavy preface. I recently joined the Vault for a month and 7 days, haha, because A, wanted to support you, and B, wanted to see all the new upcoming content that I possibly could. Honestly, I see a parallel between your Vault and possibly a cable subscription, or some less than moral online video sites, if you know what I'm insinuating. You're paralleling us to a porn site? I get what you're saying, though. However, I could not justify renewing my subscription. Would be curious if you'd be able to comment on any of my concerns. Definitely. And don't worry, I won't take these... You're already nicer than a lot of people on YouTube, if you just put it that way. And hopefully constructive. My biggest problem was consistency. I know with Owen leaving, you've had a shake-up and you're still trying to figure stuff out. Actually, Owen leaving hasn't been that part of it. It's more that we had the holidays. And then all of last year, I would say, was a shake-up. In the store closing and trying to kind of figure out what it is that we were going to do. So consistency has been something that has been concerning me, I'll tell you right away, for a very long time. And it's something that we're starting to to be able to do now. We're like 40K, we're definitely consistent. It's the other games that I'm concerned about, like War Machine and Infinity. Fantasy I want to get it into, but it's going to be hard to get that one really, really consistent. But Infinity and War Machine, I want to get consistent. Whatever consistent means. If it's weekly, twice a week, twice a month, whatever it is, to be actually consistent with it. But I do agree, consistency is huge, and it's been a concern of mine. So I just want you to know that. However, with the Vault, I don't really know what I'm getting, to be honest, and there is no type of guarantee with anything. One week you have 2 Warhammer 40K bat reps, the next week it'll be Infinity bat reps. Would you even consider a type of calendar? Yes. Even if it's just on Monday saying, this is what you should be expecting this week, I think that could be greatly appreciated. Yeah, see, what we're trying to do, I'll tell you the way that I'm working towards it this year. This is this year's goal, so hopefully by the end of this year we'll be doing this, which is a short amount of time for a company, is that we'll be able to say, we make this many 40K battle reports every week, this many War Machine battle reports every week, this many Infinity battle reports every week, this many painting tutorials. The painting tutorials we've been consistent with. Chris has been able to be really good with that. He's gotten into a rhythm, and we're able to say, yes, we have daily, when I say daily, Monday to Friday, daily painting tutorials, the quick tips or whatever else we're going to be putting out, and things like that. So that has been consistent. That's been like the ideal consistency that we can say that. But I want to be able to say, this is what you can expect from week to week or month to month. And all of that. So totally 150,000% agree with you. To keep this post short, I'll omit any other concerns for one more, since this is probably getting long. My second problem was, what release content was right for me? I only play 40K. I honestly cannot watch any Warm Hordes Infinity Fantasy because I do not really know what's going on. You mentioned last sit and talk about how to play bat reps, and I think this is a great idea. I have no intention of ever playing Fantasy, War Machine, etc. in real life, but if you had those intro bat reps, people like me could watch them, learn these other games, and then more of your content is applicable to them. So I like that, actually, because, for example, I love watching StarCraft battle reports, even though I don't play the game. Now, I have played the game enough to get the basic concepts, so that helps, but even if I hadn't, you can watch those and learn how to play, and you can enjoy spectating them. It's like watching sports. Like a lot of sports people watch, they never play, or they play so infrequently that they really can't consider themselves experts whatsoever. And yet watch a game enough, and you know what an expert, like you kind of become an expert in your own sense. Like I watch StarCraft battle reports, and even though I could never do what they do, I know what they should do. So I can see when they make mistakes, I could be like, oh, and he made that big mistake. And even though I couldn't do half as well as him, I can see when they're making mistakes, and I can enjoy the game. So the fact that, if we can kind of allow people to be able to watch these. Now, it's a little different with wargaming because I think part of the enjoyment is getting ideas for your own armies, learning how to conquer other armies that you're playing against, and so there's a tactical side of it as well. So I don't know if it would be quite as effective that somebody like you says, I don't play War Machine, don't want to play it, but maybe if you can teach me it enough through videos, I can enjoy watching the battle reports. That's possible, but I'm not sure if it would actually be enough. because of the nature of the game. It's not like fast-paced like watching a StarCraft battle report where they're like 20 or 30 minutes long. We're talking about hour-long battle reports usually, sometimes longer. And so it's an interesting concept though. But we definitely do plan on having those series of how to play, so that if people do desire, then they could learn it. My last comment is about this, is my opinion, are the BATRFs you made of pre-6th edition Codex Tyranids are kind of obsolete, aren't they? So those videos weren't applicable to me, honestly. I'm not saying you should delete them, but just something to think about. Yep, no, they're definitely, the older battle reports become less, like pretty much even battle reports that are only a couple months old become a little obsolete, because like myself as a player, I learn new things, and there might have been mistakes that I made that I no longer make. Anyway, more than willing to support you in the future if I can justify it, and of course I will still watch your sit and talks, really just trying to give you some feedback. And finally, want to end this by stating the disclaimer that this is only my opinion, and I know others will vary. Thank you, Matt. You know, those are very, very good and actually very perceptive concerns, because honestly, like usually the concern somebody has is, why would I pay for it when I can get it online for free? And it's like, that doesn't make any sense, because these videos that are in the vault, you can't get online for free because they're in the vault. Now you might think, well, but I can get painting tutorials online. Yes, but you can't get Chris's painting tutorials, and you can't get this many battle reports. You can't get our style of battle reports. Like if you like our stuff, you can't get these anywhere else, because they are our style and they're the way we do them. I'm not saying we're the best. I'm just saying if you like our stuff and you want more of it, then that's where you go. But really what it comes down to, I think a lot of people, we ran a survey, and a lot of people are Vault members just because they love our content so much that they want to make sure we can continue doing it. And so they support us. Not saying that you should join just for that reason. By all means, make sure it's worth it to you. And we are going to work our hardest over the years to make it more and more worth it to you. Even if you only play one game and aren't interested in any of the other content, we want there to be so much content and such good quality content in there that even the stuff, just a few things, it's kind of like a Netflix subscription. It's like people don't go on Netflix and say, well, I'm not going to watch 90% of this, so I want 90% of my $8 a month back. Like they won't say that, because they feel that just those few things that they watch are worth that $8 a month. Well, we want the same thing for the Vault. If you don't have to watch everything, but the things that you do watch should be worth the $3 or $5 or $12, whichever plan that you're getting per month. But I do agree that in order for that to happen, there has to be the consistency and all of that. So we have a lot of Vault members. We have thousands of Vault members in there right now, and who are supporting us and making this possible. And we're doing well with that, and we want to do even better so we can expand, because the bigger the Vault gets, like right now, we have like myself making battle reports, we have Dave making battle reports, we got Jay, and now we have Joel, who's just started. He's going to be covering War Machine. But even with those 4 people making it, it's hard. We have consistency for 40K, and with Joel going, we will definitely start within 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have good consistency for War Machine, like regular War Machine battle reports. But I'm the only one doing Infinity, and there's only 2 other players around here who play Infinity, so that's hard to have consistency. And so we need to, what I'd love is to have the Vault grow enough that we can hire more content producers and start to have them dedicated to certain games. Like hire somebody who's just the fantasy guy, so that all those people who play fantasy can finally have those battle reports on a weekly basis at the very least. And then hire somebody else who's Infinity, for example. Or somebody else who plays some other game, or maybe Flames of War. Like start really branching out to all these other games. Or drop some Commander, or whatever, or you can, or mixtures of all those. Because one guy doesn't have to just play one game. He could play, if he's working full time, for example, he could easily do 2 or 3 different games. And then having enough mixture of that you're going to see the variety, and all of a sudden we can actually start to have a calendar and saying this is how much we produce on a weekly basis. So we can guarantee this. It'll change from time to time, hopefully for the better, but and it obviously has to change and adapt and everything. But it doesn't mean that we can't be consistent even in the changing of it. Like consistency being that, you know, we have this minimum that we do, and then maybe this one game is not that popular, so we're not going to play it as much, but we'll play this one, or maybe we'll just introduce a new one, or whatever happens to be. So very valid concerns, incredibly valid, things that have been on my mind, and I'll tell you, we're working as hard as we can to fix those. So over the coming months, hopefully you'll see that change. Tyler, 6298, I understand your concept of government, but to quote Gandhi, even if you are a minority of one, the truth is the truth. No matter what the majority says, you can't just go with the flow and assume that all is well. Slavery was considered completely normal in America for a time. The fact that most people agree to that does not make it okay. I never said what the majority said is okay. I just said that a government should be ruled by what the majority wants. And if you don't agree with it, it's not that you need to go with the flow and agree and all of a sudden be like, okay, well, the majority wants it, so obviously that must be right. It just means that you shouldn't expect the government to change based on what a minority of people want. Instead, those minority of people should work to convince more people that what they want is good. Like the abolition of slavery, for example, is a perfect example of that. Yes, the majority wanted it, but then after a while, with enough people campaigning against it and working to change the majority's thoughts, the majority no longer wants it. So that is a perfect example of why the majority rules works. Because done right, the majority will change their thinking to what is right if people can show them what that happens to be. That's my faith in the human race overall. And I know we're not perfect, and there's plenty of historical examples to show when majority is chosen wrong, and that's fine. Like majority will choose wrong as well, but I think that generally the majority will choose what is right. Generally. Separano. Hey Matt, I typically view your videos on my smartphone, but it's a little annoying at times. Any thought of a mobile app or mobile site? Definitely thoughts of it. Our whole site needs a complete gutting and redesign, and that's going to be very costly, so I wouldn't expect us to actually do it for a little while, because I want to do it right. I want to be able to just redo the site inside and out so that it's more up to date, so it looks more modern, and so the functionality on the back end actually works. Because there's been a lot of mishmash as we've grown over the years. Like I'm the one that started with it, and we started with just with a WordPress blog, and then I installed Xcart to do our store, and then we installed. And then Epic Duck Mike designed the functionality behind the content site as it is. And then we installed a forum, and all these different pieces of software had to somehow interact, and they didn't really that well, and you had to create like 3 different accounts. And you still do, but I hide a lot of it now, and I've reprogrammed it to band-aid it so that you can't really tell that it's doing all the stuff behind the scenes that's all convoluted. Needs a redesign. And with that redesign would come making it more modern, including a mobile site. An app is not necessarily necessary, because for just to view the site, like if it's mobile friendly, then you don't need an app. Trig 2. Hey Matt, I think that the Hive Guard was nerfed as an internal balance due to the increase of BS of the Tyrant. I don't know, as soon as you use the word balance with 40k, I think that any arguments that you're about to make are probably wrong, because I don't think Games Workshop actually is too concerned with balance. Could you imagine an army with 2 Tyrants with 2 Twin Linked Devours as well as 3 full units of Hive Guard, all at BS 4? Super broken. Don't think so. Really don't think so. Because there's so many ways to deal with that. Why such thought didn't go into other codices, I can't imagine. No, I don't think the Hive Guard needed the nerf. I know people are like, well, you haven't seen the 9 Hive Guard list. It's like, well, come on. Like, we're not, obviously somebody can cheese things out, but the Flying Hive Tyrants are not, like, even with their 2 Twin Linked Devours, they're strong. But they're also very, very fragile. They are. You might think, no, they're not. They're toughness 6 flying monsters creatures. Trust me, I've played them enough times to be able to say this unequivocally against every type of army I've played against. They are fragile. They get shot down really easily. Just fire a bunch of strength 3 weapons at them, ground them, which instantly will give them a wound. Like there's a 1 in 6 chance that it won't. You're 2+, they take a wound, no armor or cover saves allowed. There goes a wound. And no, they don't have iron armor anymore, so they don't even have that chance. And then they're on the ground, exposed. Toughness 6 is not that big a deal when you're down to 3 wounds with only a 3+ save. So many things have ways to defeat that. You got your 2 Twin Linked Devours, which means you suck in close combat now. You have a high weapon skill and all that kind of stuff, but your number of attacks just doesn't help. So Flying Hive Tyrants, they're awesome. Don't get me wrong, but they're really expensive. Not too expensive. I'm not saying they are. I think they're actually really well balanced for what they can do. But they are fragile, considering how much they cost and how big they look. So, no, I don't think it would be unbalanced. Also, as a repost, now that you have a working iPad, have you thought about doing a Leviathan week for the Hive Fleet Leviathan releases? No, we're not doing that, but I have been using some of the stuff in the narrative campaign that we just started posting yesterday, so you'll see that. Devon Madeira. Matt, to address your comment on Assaulty armies, I'd like to say that an Assaulty Tyranid army could be very viable against armies such as Tau and Eldar. You could just use the Rising Leviathan Data Sleep 1 and infiltrate almost your entire force. Yeah, the fact that you have to use that to fix your codex kind of shows the answer to that. Maybe you should try out some of the data sheets, slates in your videos and give your opinions on them. So I just talked about that. Geeko170, must apologize for my last comment. I don't normally leave my questions so poorly formed, but nevertheless, thank you for your recommendations and I greatly enjoyed all the battle reports. I don't remember what your last comment was, sorry. Especially enjoy watching your battle against a gentleman from Alabama in the Space Marines. Roll Tide and have a good day. TGTOTO Sean. Hey Matt, I wanted to first thank you and the rest of the team for all your recent videos, especially the new Tyranid ones. I'd just like to ask about any other hobbies you have, video games, movies, etc. I watched one of the Dave's videos earlier and he mentioned movies as like his second hobby. I guess you really want to. I guess video games for me. We've been playing our Minecraft in our Minecraft server, and I enjoy games like XCOM, Enemy Unknown. What other games have I enjoyed? The latest Batman, Arkham Origins, although it had the glitch, I couldn't actually finish it. I got to go back and it's probably been patched by now. It's been a little while. Got that at Christmas. But yeah, I'd say video games would be my second hobby. Play a little bit more than I actually should. Geeko170, strongly agree with your belief on how God created the universe, and I must also ask, being a Christian, what is your thoughts on the possibility of intelligent life beyond our solar system? I 100% believe that we are not the only place that God has put people. And actually that's a belief that Mormons hold, that he has created not just this world, but lots and lots and lots and lots of other worlds. And they are populated with his children, just like us. So that is actually a Mormon belief. So, personally, being a Southern Baptist, I like to think that God didn't just put us in this little blue speck and leave the rest of the galaxy, let alone the universe, empty. The Bible says God made us in his image, and I believe that means a spiritual image rather than physical. Wow, I was in a rant there, sorry. But anyways, what is your opinion on intelligent alien life? There's my opinion. Once in 85, Matt, I have a question. Why do you not magnetize your models? I have magnetized models. I don't do anything with my models. But, well, some of them are magnetized. Magorian, hey Matt, I was catching up on an old sit talk and came across a comment about whether or not an absence of evidence is itself evidence of absence and related the subject to religion. The poster, who was agnostic, came to the conclusion that it would not be, that the absence of evidence does not constitute proof that something does not exist. I just wanted to note that this is not entirely accurate. It is not a truism to say that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, or vice versa, but rather depends entirely on whether or not you would expect to find evidence in the first place. For example, consider the following. You're away from home. You left the window open in your bedroom. You are informed that earlier that day while you were away, a wasp flew in through the window, turned around, and flew right back out. If upon returning home you found no evidence of that event, would that be reason to think it never happened? Clearly not. Now in that case, there's evidence that it did happen because somebody else saw it, so there was a witness. Because we wouldn't expect to see any discernible evidence that it happened. However, instead of being informed of the actions of a lonely bug, pretend that you're told that there was a rather severe fire in your bedroom early that day. If upon returning home you found your room intact, just as you left it with no burn marks, damaged goods, or even the smell of smoke, would that be reason to think there was no fire? Absolutely, because we would expect to see the evidence of a fire, especially a rather severe one. The absence of evidence here is conspicuous and is evidence that no such fire existed. Now, the only problem with your thing there, not that I'm disagreeing with your idea that, because I agree that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but it also doesn't mean that it's evidence of it, whatever. Like it doesn't actually prove anything, really. But in your case, somebody told you that something happened, so that is evidence. Like that's actually evidence right there. A witness is evidence. In fact, in trial, I like how my nose is like white half the time. It's because of the light. In a trial, you call on witnesses, and they're used for evidence, right? So should we expect to see evidence of God? That depends entirely on how God is defined, and there are plenty of gods for whom we should expect to find evidence, but don't, and plenty for whom we wouldn't. I'll stop the comment there so we don't jump too far down the religion rabbit hole for a discussion better suited for an email. Just wanted to clarify that whether an absence of evidence constitutes evidence that something does not exist is situational and not universal. Love your videos and happy working. I agree. Totally agree. Now, take this for example. Let's say that God exists and that he is all-powerful, all-knowing. He's not mystical or magical. Let's say that he just has a perfect understanding of all science. So the laws of nature, and so he just uses those. And just as he's all-powerful, all-knowing. And then we learn through scriptures and through prophets that he wants us to work by faith and not by evidence. And we get evidence of that faith after faith, but not before. So we have to show the faith and belief beforehand. So why would we expect, as imperfect beings, to be able to thwart the way he wants to work? Would not an all-powerful, all-knowing being be able to work in such a way that if he wants you to believe by faith, he's not going to allow you to discover him through scientific methods? So now some of you are going to be like, balderdash, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I respect anybody's belief in this subject, but just remember that it's interesting because I was watching a really cool video series on Netflix by Stephen Hawking about the universe, and it's really cool stuff. I love it. I love physics. I love astronomy. and all that stuff, talking about the origins of the universe. And he looked at it and he's like, now when we look at the universe and we look at like gravitational constants and like the speed of light, all these things, if the numbers were just off a little bit, if gravity was a little stronger, the universe wouldn't have been able to form. If it was a little weaker, the universe wouldn't have been able to form. So not only is there like the Goldilocks zone for where the planet needs to be, but there's a Goldilocks zone for all the way that the laws of nature work. And they just happen to be perfect to allow the universe to form. And he says, so wouldn't that be evidence of a divine creator? And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of. Although you can't really call it evidence. It's just more like, yeah, you can fit that. He's like, maybe not, because what if there is an infinite number of parallel universes, and all of those other ones, or most of them, have those constants off? So the gravity in this parallel universe is too high, and this one's too low. And it just happens because if you have an infinite number of universes, you'll eventually find one that has all the numbers, and then in that one you have all the things that work to make life. And therefore there's another plausible explanation for why the universe was. And I thought, that's interesting, because that is just as much as talking about a supreme creator is another plausible thing. And yet people would hear that from him and say, see, God doesn't exist. And yet I'm looking at that and thinking, well, no, because there's no evidence of that any more than there's evidence of God existing. So both require a leap of faith, in a sense that you're trying to believe something that fits the facts, just like a supreme creator who's all-knowing and all-powerful fits the facts as well. And you still are leaping through a lot of unknowns. I'm not disrespecting that idea. I think it's a cool idea. I really do. It's like, okay, yeah, I can see when people talk about string theory and the different dimensions. There's a lot of things that explain things, and I can see why people could believe that God doesn't exist. I can see that. I honestly do, because they can start to piece these things together as other. The main problem with anything, talking about anything, God existing, not existing, all these different things, and I'm really getting into a lot of religious stuff here, so I apologize if this is bothering you, but I think it's very fascinating. And right now I'm not even trying to prove that God exists. I'm just trying to show that we have to have an open mind for these things, one way or the other, and really, really looking at it both ways. Well, the main issue that we have with talking about origins of the universe, whether it's God or not God, is there can't be an origin. There can't be, because then what happened before that origin? In both cases, it is this weird thing that is hard or impossible for our finite minds to really comprehend. Like we talk about the Big Bang, and I know a lot of religious people would be like, well, if there's a Big Bang, what happened before the Big Bang? And you can't explain that. But then you could turn around and say to somebody who believes in God, well, if there was God, where did he come from? Like, there's always a question of origin, and it's unexplained no matter what you talk about, because there can't be an origin, because if there's an origin, that means that before that origin there was nothing, and you can't have something from nothing. Like, you just can't. Like, that's one of the fundamental laws that we seem to all agree on, that you can't make something from nothing. And yet, in both cases, it's phenomenally, really impossible to comprehend whether there is a God or isn't. It's just cool, really, when you think about it. The universe has to have, well, not this universe, but when I call it like the multiverse, the everything that exists, period, in every dimension, higher, lower, parallel, whatever, they all have to have, like, this thing of existence has to have always existed, right? If it hadn't, then where did it come from before that? And it's kind of crazy. I love it. I love the discussions on it, as long as people can be civil. I don't enjoy when somebody's like, well, you're obviously wrong and you're stupid because you believe in God, therefore you're believing in magical fairy tales. It's like, no, I don't believe it's magical. I don't at all. So, wow, I'm only on page 5. Wow, some of these comments really got me going. Let's see if I can get through a couple more. I know I'm over time, but Lukaryov, 2Motor. Hey Matt, I'm a beginning Tyranid player. I'm playing for half a year now, and I was wondering, what Tyranid model should I get if I want to play competitively? I don't like competitive play, I've talked about this before, but competitive Tyranid things would be like Flying Hive Tyrants, Hive Guard, sorry, all of a sudden had a mind blank there. Warriors, especially like ones with bone swords and lash whips, that kind of stuff. Carnifexes. Yeah, that's a good start. Troop choices. Hormagaunts. They're good choices. They're good. One more question. Oh wait, no, that's too long. Yeah, you know what? I apologize. I only got through 5 of the 14 pages. I wanted to get through more. I know I'm not getting through as many of these as I used to, but I just get caught up on certain of the questions. I just don't have time to do more than one of these a week on top of that. So it's possible that if we keep getting like this, I might have to institute a voting system where people actually vote for which comments they want to be asked. Remember I talked about that last week, how bigger companies, not that we're a big company, but you know they can't actually answer everybody's questions, and so then it feels less personal. Anyways, thank you very much for your questions. I hope that you enjoyed this. I know I got on some rants about MMOs and existence and all that kind of stuff, but I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you're able to take it for what it is, that, you know, expressing my opinions and beliefs on things, and it's okay if you don't agree. I honestly am okay with you not agreeing. Just be civil about not agreeing, please. Even if you're going to post, I completely disagree with you. There could be Origins, there should be MMORPGs, the Elder Scrolls, and here is why. Just be nice and be civil, and I will be civil back. That's all I can say. I'll be civil back, even if you're not civil. I just ignore your comment, that's all. This is Matthew from MMORPG. Thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.